It is that time of year where I need to start talking through my 2025 planner and journal lineup so I can get my planner set up and moved in, because I do like to move into my planners usually in the month of December, but I've been away for a while, so I thought we would just do kind of a casual Q4 update and a low-key 2025 planner and journal lineup because I don't want to curse it. But I have my planner in hand and I do plan on moving in December. So my next video is going to be my migration prep, but it felt weird just jumping into that. So here's like a catch up session before we kind of dive into the 2025 planner setup content for the rest of November. So I've been away because of work. I've been traveling for work again, and I have been making videos over on Patreon, so if you're ever looking for more content or at this point consistent content for me, you can find me over there. But I have been traveling a lot, and that kind of piqued some holes in my current system because I anticipate traveling a lot for the first part of 2025. And in November, particularly, I was trying and cycling through a lot of different notebooks trying to find what I think is going to be the lineup for 2025, and I think I've finally made the call and it's feeling pretty good. So let me just share what I'm using now because it is a good reflection of what I'll be using next year. So I decided to kind of move into my Hobonichi Weeks full time. There were a lot of little guys in between here, including my passport size traveler's notebook, an A5 bullet journal made the bingo card, and if moving completely back to my personal rings. But I have returned to the weeks just because it's something that is pretty effortless for me right now. I think something I learned in 2024 is that my planner needs to just be a planner, and all of the memory keeping and journaling, that's more of where I've tried to shift my hobby towards, and that ends up in my journal. So the Hobonichi Weeks has been a planner that I've dipped in and out of all year, and I think last we talked it was September. There are definitely still plenty of blank weekly spreads, but how I'm using it really hasn't changed since my last Hobonichi Weeks update, so I can put that in the cards. I think it was actually my last video, so maybe you've already seen it. But I do my rolling weekly on the right hand side, and then the left hand side is a mix of like events and light memory keeping. I fill out this spread out usually towards the end of the week. Sometimes I dip in on a daily basis. It just depends on what I'm feeling. All the writing in here is done with a mix of my Pilot Vanishing Point and Extra Fine, or Fine. I'm not using Extra Fine this year. Freudian slip, yes. My Fine Pilot Vanishing Point with atramentis Document Black, or I've been using a uniball one in 0.38, which is what I have tucked in here right there. So this is kind of what the last few weeks have looked like. This is the current week, and I did set up for November. I filmed the plan with me, but never released the footage. Sorry about that. But I do plan on moving into a Hobonichi Weeks for 2025. I'm going to be using my smoke gray one that I picked up back in September, and I'm really looking forward to this. For 2025, I just have a lot on my plate. We are hopefully buying a home, moving into said home. I am a solution architect, and we're just buttoning up the development phase of a pretty large business system project, and we're going live in February of 2025. So I'm going to be on the road pretty extensively for the first quarter, if not the first half of 2025. And the nice thing about the Hobonichi Weeks is that it's really slim, it's compact. I could have a full year's worth of information at my fingertips, which I think is going to be really helpful for purchasing the home, to be able to kind of reference the notes that I've taken from December forward and just kind of have all of that available to me. It's a really slim profile setup as well, which I like. This fits in pretty much all of my belt bags. And the nice thing about this is I pretty much hybrid bullet journal in the Hobonichi Week. So the weeklies are already there and set up for me. The only thing I do with my layout is it requires a pencil. And for the most part, that was a pretty big key point for me because I've been sort of planning and journaling when I can and where I can. And as much as I loved my time in a ring-bound system this year, I just kind of got a little bit anxious about trying to estimate how many pages I would need for things like journaling or maybe feeling a little bit locked in if I print, cut, and punched like a quarter's worth of inserts so that they were available for me. So the nice thing about this is that there's plenty of grid pages in the back, and the next page is kind of always there to get me, and it's something that I can set up in an airport, on the airplane, and it's just a nice compact book, which I think is what I need to kind of keep me sane here for the next few months and the first part of 2025. I always refer to the Hobonichi Weeks as my emotional support planner. I have considered a lot of other options for 2025. I'm not going to say that I want to stick with the weeks for the entire part of it, but when I was thinking objectively about when I think I would need the emotional support, the first part of 2025 definitely felt like that was what was going to be needed. So I figure I will move into this next. So my next video is going to be the migration prep, and basically November, the rest of the content is going to be focused on the Hobonichi Weeks. So next week, I'm going to go through my current Hobonichi Weeks, look at all of my habit trackers and collections and things that I would like to migrate over into this new bullet journal. I'll do that setup off camera, and then the video after that we'll do the flip through and kind of the move in to the new planner. So November is kind of dedicated to this. This is the smoke gray cover, by the way, and I did go with the English edition. So on the journaling front, this is kind of where I found I did the most experimentation in the month of October. So I think last we talked, I shared that I've been archiving in my 2024 Hobonichi Cousin. This is the Gingham Hone edition, and it is like a paper cover. I have this in a clear cover by Midori. It's just their A5 that I stretched with a hairdryer like 4 or 5 years ago. And I've just been bringing it on for year to year. It's on its last leg, it's falling apart, but it still works. This is the Midori clip band, by the way. I got it from Amazon. I've seen Baum Kuchen carry them. If you don't want to shop with Amazon, that's where I've seen it. And I did a pretty decent deep dive on how I have been using this, and no real changes to report. For quarter 4, I think I'm going to continue using it pretty much the same way. I did get a question about how the backfill is going, and it's pretty well fizzled out. I think I burnt myself out super hardcore on doing the backfill. If you're just jumping in, I actually bought this I think in August of 2024 with the goal of just kind of consolidating everything back into this notebook from the various journals that I've used throughout the year at a high level. Like, I'm not transferring word for word. I've gotten about halfway through the year. So I have got from June 3rd up to current date with a couple, mismatched spreads in here. I think you saw that I need to kind of catch up on a few of the weekly spreads. And then on the dailies, pretty much the same thing. I'm like June 3rd up to current date. So I have about half a year in here. I would love to continue the backfill and get everything in this one place. But at this point, I'm just so burnt out on it that I'm like, it is not in the cards for today. So I think I would like to do 1 week, because if you've been kind of following along with me this year, I did move in Memorial Day weekend. So if I can get from Memorial Day weekend forward, then this is a nice little capsule of my archive since I moved. And that, at least for me mentally, puts a nice little pin in it. And then if I feel really motivated, maybe over the holiday break, I will continue to backfill. But at this point, I'm pretty much just focusing on sticking this out through the end of the year in the remaining pages. So I am just journaling on my dailies. For a lot of this notebook, I have been transferring my completed tasks as part of a way to fill the space in the page. I like how it looks. It's interesting to go back and see kind of what I complete on a daily basis, along with kind of what I'm thinking about and how I feel, or events that happen. And it's a nice little time capsule. Since moving back into the Hobonichi Weeks and kind of acknowledging to myself that the 2024 Hobonichi Weeks is my most complete record of the year in a bound book, my personal rings rivals that, but at this point now I've got an extra month or two in my weeks that I don't have in my ring bound planners. So it's pretty much the most complete archive. So I will keep my Hobonichi notebooks. I always keep my Hobonichi notebooks at the end of the year. So I'm not as focused on necessarily transferring over tasks in the way that I was prior when I was using my pocket rings or my personal rings, because if I really need to see what I did on November 2nd of 2024, that will be in my Hobonichi Weeks because my dailies are completely up to date. So the Hobonichi Weeks is actually the part of the system that is going to be changing for 2025, because what I found while traveling these last couple of months is that keeping up with an A5 day per page is a little bit overwhelming. I don't necessarily have the time at the end of a pretty busy travel work week, and if I get more than 2 or 3 days behind, it takes me a good chunk of time to get caught up, and it's a little bit overwhelming. So this is just sort of something that it was really hard, because it turns out I am really attached to this planner, and I stepped away from it for the month of October, but that only lasted a few days, and about once a week I was always back in here updating spreads and kind of reaching for it, because I do really want to have a nice complete record of my year at the end of it. But thinking about 2025 and then how much is going on, doing an A5 day per page really ends up being about a 25-minute exercise, which isn't all that bad, but when I'm traveling and I'm just completely burnt out at the end of the day, all I want to do is just like lay down and take a nap, or lay down and put on some TV or something just to kind of emotionally recuperate. So keeping up with this I found to be a little bit challenging. So for next year, I've actually decided that I'm going to give up the dated daily pages and just sort of journal how I feel like when I feel like it in an A5 Sterling ink common planner, which I'm really excited about, because I've really enjoyed or kind of fallen back in love with the vertical weekly spreads over recent months. I've had fun kind of using up my sticker collection the last few. The month of October, I kind of have a bit of a style shift, which I absolutely love, and I hope to bring forward into my new book for 2025. I really want my full year of memory keeping in one space, but I only want to feel committed when life is super busy to filling out the vertical weekly pages. So I think the common planner is going to be a really good space for me to have the dated preset up kind of low effort portion of vertical weekly memory keeping and sort of logging events and capturing and kind of visualizing my week as a whole, because with the rolling weekly and the Hobonichi Weeks, I don't really get that in the same way. I do a little bit of memory keeping obviously on the left-hand page, so I try and kind of note things that happen, but I'm a big visual person, so seeing helps me more than text a little bit. And something about putting even just text in like appropriate time blocks really helps me kind of put together the picture of what happened week over week, and I really enjoy flipping through these. And yeah, I've kind of fallen back in love with them. So this is the part of my planner that I will be committed to for 2025, and then the blank pages in the back I'm just going to journal as and when I feel like it, which I think will be kind of freeing, because the months that I am traveling a lot, maybe I barely reach for my journal, but then there are seasons where I want to journal 2 to 4 to 6 pages a day because I have a lot to say. So I think just having 365 notes pages in the back will be a good balance for me for next year. But that being said, I am going to complete out 2024 in my Hobonichi cousin. It feels wrong to abandon it at this point. Like, I need to finish what I started, at least for finishing out the rest of the year. I don't know if I will get to backfilling the first half of the year in here, but we'll see. Never say never, right? But I am really looking forward to it. Oh, I guess in last part about Techokaigi here, I will be planning for work in a Hobonichi Weeks, just a standard size for 2025. And I learned in 2024 that I really like having my work pages interspersed or contained in my personal planner while I'm working from home, but it turns out the complete opposite is true when I'm traveling for work. And anytime I took like my personal rings on a work trip or some other kind of flavor where they were kind of more intermingled, things just kind of tended to break down until I decided to return to the work weeks. Using a weeks for work is something I've done going on 5 years now, I think, and I've definitely dipped in and out of this notebook plenty already for 2024. It's just something that when I'm stressed, I find having a separate notebook works really well for me. I always draw in these vertical weeklies, just 6 columns. And but I like the cream paper and I love the covers that Hobonichi comes out with, so I just kind of continue to stick with them. But I'm actually going to use this same planner into 2025. This one is the Hiroko Kabuta for 2024, and I love this cover so much. And as I was flipping through it, I didn't move into this notebook until April of 2024, and I've only used 2 or 3 notes pages. So I'm actually just going to draw out the vertical weeklies in the back and then finish out using whatever available weekly spreads I have in the front. And I'm hoping that gets me through the tail end of this particular project, and then it will all be together. I can still be in a cover that I absolutely love, and then maybe we'll pick up a different weeks from there. I do have a weeks for 2025 that I did pick up, but I just kind of want to see it out in this cover and then save that potentially for another project. We'll see. But this is kind of this stack with a Hobonichi cousin standing in as a sterling ink common planner. Hopefully that'll arrive here in the next few weeks so we can focus on setting up the common planner in the month of December, but the month of November will be focused on filling out my Hobonichi Weeks Mega and getting that all set up because I will move in early December. But yeah, how have you been? Let me know what your 2025 lineup is. Did you guess what I would go with? Because there was definitely some alternative options earlier that only made the light of day over on Patreon, but you know, this is what I'm thinking is the right fit, at least for the first quarter of 2025, and then we can reevaluate from there if needed. But thank you for being here, thank you for watching, and I will talk to you soon.